This is Dunkin' Donuts
Dunkin'
coffee.
Donuts coffee. Hey, man, that's classically good stuff.
Yeah.
The Brahms coffee used to be fantastic, but that is not as good as it used to be for whatever reasons.
I've never had Brahms coffee, I don't think.
It used to be really, really good, and now it's just mediocre.
Do they just make it for sale there, or do they actually distribute beans and stuff?
You can buy the beans and stuff
Okay.
there, but it is what it is. Should we go ahead and roll?
Let's do it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of Shiftless. Coming at you once again from the back porch of Chateau de Chef Green. And just another glorious morning at the moment. I thought it was going to be a little chilly, but this is about right.
It is about right. I've got a jacket on currently. It's going to be jacket off in just a little bit.
Not too far down the road. Not too far down the road at all.
Got the steam kettle in the background.
Yeah. More coffee on the way. Hell yeah.
My beautiful bride making some coffee.
Oh my gracious. So you had a hectic weekend this past weekend, or was this your off weekend?
This was my off weekend.
Okay.
But we did make a trip to Oklahoma to see Cody Johnson.
That's right.
I have to tell you, if you've never been to Paycom, which I guess is what they're calling the building now.
Okay.
I'm sure it's much like Dallas where
Whoever the sponsor is.
yeah, it's currently. But it's where the Oklahoma City Thunder plays.
Okay.
So Gage kept calling it the Thunderdome. That was one of the best concert-going experiences I've ever had as far as parking and leaving.
Okay.
We pulled up. We parked like across the street, basically. I mean, from here to that windmill from the stadium cost us $10. Walked right across the street, walked straight in. I mean, went through security.
Sure.
Concert was over. Walked straight out, right across. I mean, it took us longer to get across the street than it did for us to get on the interstate.
Wow.
Pulled straight out of the parking lot, took one turn, merged onto the interstate, gone. It was pretty impressive. I mean, we've all sat in those concert lines
Oh my God, yes.
for an hour and a half where everybody's jockeying for position and trying to cut in and cutting across the parking lot.
I used to always jump out and direct traffic just to get people coordinated
Yeah.
and doing stuff because,
Yeah.
if everybody turns into a bunch of assholes.
I have never experienced something as seamless as this.
That's very interesting.
It was very cool. And maybe we got lucky, but it seemed like that was kind of the way.
It sounds like that was the design and the layout.
It was pretty good. Much like recent Rangers games I've gone to have been really easy to get out of. It seems like they've got, the old Rangers games when you left, it would take, 20, 30 minutes just to get where you weren't in
we had our parking lot that we went to. It's like, I know I can get out of this one pretty quickly sort of thing.
Now it seems like they have everything routed the right way.
I think I remember reading that when they were building the new one that they put a lot of effort into situating parking and ingress and egress and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and it shows. But that was the best concert experience I've ever had as far as that goes.
Okay.
So,
how about the concert itself?
It was amazing. There's just something about taking your kid to something that they're head over heels
They're excited about.
Yeah. I mean, I was excited too. I'm not the biggest fan, obviously, but I'm a fan, and my kid just sang every song like he wrote it, He's just so happy to be there.
Very cool.
It was awesome. And here's my old man fuss for a second.
Okay.
was a girl sitting in front of us, like just 2 rows in front of us. Concert was sold out, but the 2 seats in front of us, nobody ever showed up. So, girl 2 seats in front of us on her phone. I'm not exaggerating, the entire concert. Like Snapchatting, taking selfies, sending videos of her and her girlfriend singing along to the song. She was recording the concert, recording herself, and I was just like, why did you even come here? Like,
And that surprises you. How?
I don't know. It doesn't surprise me. It's just, I feel like the grumpy old man that I know I'm going to become, or I already am. And I was just like, what are you doing? Like, somebody's going to ask that girl, how was the concert? And she's going to have to go back and look at her Snapchat to even realize. It's just a different.
Maybe it's a different thing. It's a different generation. And I'm not excusing it. I mean, I don't want it to sound that way, but I have less negative thoughts about a girl, a younger person that went that route than somebody our age that kind of does that crap.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's more excusable.
Actually, the people our age do it with their iPad and block the view of everybody.
Yeah. That was one thing that was interesting, too. There was a slow song, and everybody pulled out their phone.
That's how they do
and put their light on.
Yeah.
And it was crazy how bright that stadium got with everybody. I mean, because everybody has a phone.
Sure. If they allow it, sure.
Yeah.
I went to a Jack White show where they made us do the phones in the bag thing.
I like that.
Oh, I have no problem with it.
Yeah. I went to see Rogan when he performed at Dickies Arena, and they did that. And they gave you the bag, but the bag was sealed. So you still were in possession of your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was cool. And everybody was present, you know. And the other cool thing was, like he said, nobody can record our shit, so we say whatever we want. He goes, you can't cancel me if you can't prove it.
Right.
So it was pretty cool. But I don't know. I mean, I know it's just a generational thing, but it seems to me like it's almost, you know, the Pixar, it didn't happen, you know, that comment all the time. Mm-hmm. It's like, how many pictures do you need? How many videos do you need? How much proof do you need that it happened?
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like somebody's just trying to show off that they're at the concert, you know?
Well, again, I think in our generation it gets somewhat show-offy. In the younger generation, that's just what they're used to. That's their culture, for lack of. I'm not agreeing with it. I'm not disagreeing with it. It's like that's a different world from mine. So I'm not gonna go too far into it.
She probably drives a Jeep with about 15 ducks on the dash. My first
real exposure to it
sorry
was when we went so that's another flashback reference. Last week's episode, we do a lot of those. My first exposure to the younger generation social media culture was when I took the kids to New York, and my daughters each were very adamant about going to some very specific spots. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, why are we going? Well, I just want to go. And each of them did and this was on the front end of Instagram.
Yeah.
And each one of them spent like 5 minutes there. No, all they wanted to do was take a
selfie.
Take a selfie there specifically, and I couldn't relate to it. It's like, we got to go see Lambo. He just messaged us. He's in town.
Yeah,
we're going to go see Lambo in Central Park. No, I got to go here. No, we're going to see Lambo.
And the one picture I remember from your New York trip was you with the naked cowboy. Mm-hmm. That came up. I guess it was on a memory not too long ago.
It was a memory fairly recently there. Yeah, so. That was an interesting trip. Boston, New York, Niagara Falls.
Oh, you went to Boston as well?
Yeah, that was the core trip.
Yeah.
It was Jessica's 21st birthday. Mm-hmm. And she wanted to go to Fenway Park and watch the Red Sox, and
Very cool.
so the grandparents came into town. And
How was that? What was that experience like going to Fenway?
Oh, come on!
I mean, I don't know. I ask out of absolute ignorance.
It's as cool as you'd expect it to be.
Can you just feel
the
history?
You can feel the history of that park. No, it's genuine baseball. But I mean, I'm not a Red Sox fan. I don't want that to come across. I'm generally speaking not an American League fan. I have no choice with the Rangers, though.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Cardinals. I'm a Cardinals fan from way back, and a Braves fan from pretty well back, and definitely National League was my jam. But the one thing I've always said is probably the Red Sox fans and the Cardinals fans are probably the most cognizant of the history of baseball and some of the smartest fan bases about baseball across the board. Don't get me wrong, they're smart fans. And
I think you'd be surprised. But, I mean, there's historians throughout.
That's what I'm saying. It's where yes, there's baseball nerds that get the love of the game. And
speaking of which, you know our buddy Caleb, who's been on the podcast multiple times.
Yeah,
he is the biggest baseball nerd.
He's the biggest baseball nerd I've ever met.
You know, one of his hobbies, he paints dead baseball players.
Yeah, that's bad, isn't it? And like I said, it applies to every club. Every club has fans that know the game. I'm not saying they don't. What I'm saying is, on a per capita basis, Red Sox fans are probably near the top group. Generally speaking, if you're talking with Red Sox fans, they know the game. Whereas a lot of the other fan bases might be just more of the, oh yeah, that's what's showing up on Instagram this week.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
But when you were in Boston, let's bring this back to bikes. Did you see a lot of cycling there? Did you see any trailheads? Did you?
They have a pretty strong messenger scene there, like New York.
Yeah.
At the time they did anyway. I assume
good bike lane presence.
I'm trying to remember that level of specificity, and I don't recall it. I recall Boston being very New Yorkish, where the messengers were just riding the streets, and wrong way on the sidewalks when needed, so forth, and all that good stuff.
You are an angel.
And he's not talking to me, people.
No, I'm talking to my beautiful wife.
Hi, guys.
Hello, Paula.
Golly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You can leave that open if you want. Okay.
We're too noisy.
Oh, yeah, we're way too noisy. I asked that because one of my friends that I met through, this is not going to end well, Luna. One of my friends that I met at Single Speed Worlds back in 2009 in Durango, Tom Parsons, ex-pro, he shoots a lot of video. He's from Boston, and he drives a Fosta, or he used to.
Okay.
I think he might still. But he was always, they put on a lot of good rides up there that I just was able to witness via social media.
Okay.
And it seems like they have a good scene up there. Dang it, that's so loud.
Yep.
And a good single speed scene, too. Luna, get out of here. Come on. Come on. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. My dogs just feel like they have to be part of the podcast.
Hello, sweetie. Such a pretty girl.
At least they're not vocal. But it seems like they have a really, I mean, I think, you know, when you have a city that's that big, you're going to have a cycling scene, hopefully, you know. But it seemed like they had a pretty good off-road scene as well. But when I think of Boston, I've never been there, but I think of a major metropolitan area that's mostly concrete, you know. But they put on a lot of good rides that I was able to see, like I said.
It's funny you say that. My experience during that cross-country trip was we've got the Texas concrete jungle is real. It's basically a concrete triangle from here. That's good. Thank you. from here to Austin to San Antonio and over to Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it's like we were talking about
It's a
on our way.
four-sided triangle.
Well, I mean, it's a triangle, Austin to San Antonio. That's a line.
No, just fucking.
And now you go and throw me. But it was like you were talking about on our way to Oklahoma, and as we're rolling through Sherman and Denison and parts of Oklahoma, it's like it all just looks the same.
Yeah.
You can't tell if you're in Euless or if you're in Durant, Oklahoma, or whatever, you know.
Yeah, it's like there's a package deal. It's like, okay, the population is 45,000. Okay, they need this store, this store, this
So
store.
it's the suburban sprawl.
Yeah.
So when we did our road trip through, Tennessee, Virginia, Washington, D.C., up to Boston, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Niagara Falls. Once you got out of Boston proper, once you got past Baltimore, once you got out of New York City, it wasn't long before you were in the woods.
Yeah.
It was really kind of interesting.
Yeah.
There didn't seem to be the suburban sprawl up in the Northeast like we have.
Did you go through Vermont?
I don't think we may have clipped the edge of it somewhere along the way. I don't think we.
I don't know why, but Vermont has been on my radar for decade plus. I just have this calling. I want to go to Vermont. I don't even know why.
I hear good things about it from an outdoors perspective.
That's all I hear.
Yeah.
And everybody I've ever met
I think it's
from
the
Vermont,
Arkansas of the Northeast.
everybody I've ever met from Vermont's just super kick-ass too. So
No, let's road trip to Vermont next year.
I want to go. I mean, this is going to sound ridiculous, but the two places that I can't get out of my head that I want to go to are Japan and Vermont. I know they're completely different.
One's for food, one's for outdoors, right?
Yeah. I mean, but I want to go to Japan for everything. Culture, architecture, like just see how a city that big operates as cleanly and as smoothly as it does.
Which city are you referring to? Tokyo? Or?
Well, I want to go to Tokyo, but I want to go to Kyoto. I want to. I want to go to a lot of places, and I would love to just move to Japan for 6 months or a year. But
2 years. It'd take 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, well, ideally, yeah, I would love.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. To truly acclimate to something like that.
Yeah, if I won the lottery tomorrow, I would. That's the first thing I would do is book a ticket to Japan.
I'm not anti-Japan, but that one hasn't really drawn. Now I could do Italy for a couple. of years.
I'm a travel bug, anyways. The truth of the matter is, I want to go everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
Like we were talking about when we were scouting the other day. I just want to see stuff I haven't seen before.
Very much so.
I feel like when you're playing a video game as a kid, and you go to the edge of the map, and then all of a sudden it populates, and you're like, oh, there's more shit over here. It's the same thing. Like once you've seen something, you can kind of form a better picture. I mean, I just love exploring, and I want to go. We went to Paris, and it was. I mean, I had no clue what to expect, except for you have this picture in your head, and then all of a sudden you get to fill in all the blanks, and you're like, oh, that's what Paris is like. But that's only my experience of what Paris is like. I'd love to spend time in Italy and Spain and France, southern part of France, and,
I've always said I'd love to do New York City for a couple of years and get dialed. I would... I'm pretty sure I would be into it, but that may have changed because
I would turn into a murderer. I do not want to be around that many people that are that rude and disgruntled with life.
That has not been my experience when I'm in New York. That's a totally different. Yeah, we could go.
See, I lived in San Francisco for a brief stint and skateboarded there and everything, and kind of got adapted to the culture there. And I went up to visit L.A. and I was like, fuck this place. It's a completely different animal.
Yeah.
And I hear New York is like L.A., on steroids as far as just people being full of themselves and,
So my first trip to New York, early 90s, I fell in love with it. It was just everything right out of the 70s gritty movies that I loved, and it fit the stereotype. But the people weren't not the stereotypical. New York people are fantastic as long as you don't slow them down. If you don't get in their way, man, everything flows smoothly. It's really cool.
I'm the same way too. As long as you don't slow me down,
Yeah,
we're good.
Yeah, and that's New York. That was New York in a nutshell, and everything was very, very. It's a huge city, but every street is its own neighborhood, its own personality. It wasn't Applebee's and Domino's and all that. You know, right? So it was really cool. Times Square was gritty, but some of the Disney store had popped in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that last trip we came back, it was like New York was all sterilized. It was really weird.
Well, Giuliani did a big campaign of cleaning up Times Square and all that, right?
Yeah.
And they kind of commercialized it and turned it into...
They very much commercialized it. It was like South Lake Town Square aren't just... to the
blown
biggest,
out.
Yeah.
And it was my understanding that New Yorkers were really disgruntled about that, but then the crime rate started going down, and I think New Yorkers, even native New Yorkers, started to kind of embrace.
They bought into that concept.
Yeah, that seems to be what I understood, but I could be wrong.
Well, that sounds plausible. Sounds about right, and I think I think a lot of it is related to just.
Speaking of travel, let's talk about bikes.
Let's.
We took the Subaru out last week.
That we did.
Got her a little dirty. She looks so good with some dirt on her ass. Did you see that picture I posted?
I did.
I just got out, and when we were checking out that crossing or whatever, and I just looked up and I was like, damn, this thing looks good with a coat of dirt on it. But also saw it in the driveway, cleaned up. Still looks good.
Mostly cleaned up.
So I did not even understand how cool that was going to be. Granted, it was spotted. The places we saw, like the old schoolhouse location, and then a couple of suspected wagon crossing spots with creeks and stuff like that. I don't know how much we discussed what the route actually entailed on the podcast versus what we discussed in the car.
I don't think we've talked about it at all on the podcast yet, because we were talking about going west when we talked on the podcast.
That's right. Right.
So basically, you made the call of, where are we going?
Yeah, we tried to dodge the weather, but it didn't work out.
We didn't succeed at that.
Yeah.
So just to give a quick overview snapshot for those who are listening, going, what the hell is he talking about? Brad and I, you heard us on last week's episode talking about going exploring if his schedule freed up, and it did. And we opted to roll through Oklahoma and scout the Butterfield Overland stagecoach route in Oklahoma. We started in Texas, following it, but we were really shooting to start from Denison and head as far towards Fort Smith, Arkansas as we could on a route that I had sketched out that's based on the Overland Mail Company's stage route. That is the classic Western Wells Fargo stagecoaches and all that. And that's what we ended up following, trying to dodge the rain, but we didn't succeed at that.
Mm-mm. But we didn't really encounter any heavy rain. It just kind of pissed on us all day.
Pretty much
off and on.
Pretty much all day, but what it really told me was
those roads handle
it fine.
Yeah. I didn't see any washouts or anything. Maybe a couple. I don't remember anything.
I mean, obviously, if there's torrential rains or something like that,
sure,
it'll happen. But yeah,
sure.
There was all those roads were in really good shape. Not just from that rain; it was obvious that they handle stuff fine, because we covered.
We found some cool stuff too. That section up by, what was it, Pittsburgh? Pittsburgh.
Yep.
That was freaking cool. Great vistas. I mean, some true, well, not true elevation, but compared to around here, you get up a little bit and you can see a long way.
You can see a long way.
And we saw some good colors. I mean, we've been treated to an extended fall this year.
Yes. Yes.
And so the changing of the leaves has actually gone on a lot longer than historically. It's odd that they're still leaves in the tree, still even green leaves in the tree in December. So
one more cold snap, we'll take care of that.
Yeah. But I was enamored with the historical, because I never contemplated any of that stuff. I was not a good student when I was in school, so I didn't pay attention. And I don't even know that we discussed that. I don't know if that was even in the curriculum, the Wells Fargo, the Butterfield Overland route. I mean, like you explained, it was a short blip in history. It lasted for like 18 months, you said?
Yeah.
Give or take.
2 years on the outside. Yeah.
So, I mean, but it morphed from something to that. It was probably a route that was traveled by stagecoaches, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, let's just put in a little bit more infrastructure and make it the mail route. Mm-hmm. And then when that kind of went away, was kind of dismantled by the railroads, right?
As far as the intended commercial use of it, kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
But make no mistake, the trail was still there. The roads were still there. So
right, that's what I'm saying. Then it morphed into something else.
It just morphed into the basic infrastructure of the land.
And then when more people started to settle, it got traveled more, and then they probably felt the need to armor it, maybe, and
more bridges.
And it just
towns popped up along the way for resupply and everything else.
Right.
Like that.
Like we stopped and checked out, or you pointed out a couple of different outposts. What'd you call them? Is it outposts? Stations, yeah. Where people would have done resupplies, and there would have been like a general store, or you could trade pelts.
Yeah,
or whatever.
So basically a station master would. That's where the stagecoach. That's where they would stop. They would trade horses, trade mules for the next leg. Everybody would get a meal there, maybe sleep, sort of thing. So that was like part of the support of the trip itself for the.
I think they had. Did people do their own stagecoach repairs, or do you think they had someone at a station that would do stagecoach repairs?
I mean, obviously, if you break down in the middle of the trail, you got to keep going one way or another. Yeah. My guess would be the stations would probably have
someone
repair supplies, or maybe even a backup stagecoach or something like that, potentially. And then, I mean, the stations, that's where the people from that area, they would drop off their mail to be picked up and put into circulation or whatever else.
Oh, you're headed west. Carry this letter to Mary Jo. Yeah. That's interesting. I don't ever contemplate those times and what all transpired in that era. It's a fun thought process.
It's really interesting. It's really fascinating. And when you're going the route we took, I mean, we parallel or use the same roads as much as we possibly can. And there were some extended stretches where we were like that through that wildlife management area that we went to. That was all that whole road. It was like 20 miles of it. That was all the old stage pass there, sort of thing. So there's lots of it that were on the exact same stretch of road that they used. But there's others where, hey, it became Highway 69. And, we're not going to send riders down that, but we'll approximate it a couple miles east or west of it.
Yeah. That's like the Natchez Trace is this same thing. Like it started out as a path. I think that they would float down the Mississippi River and end up in Natchez, and then hop out and make their way all the way back up to Tennessee and resupply and float back down. And so I think that's how the trace started. But
sounds about right.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool because I had intentions at one point because the actual trace, what is paved now, parallels the old trace because they came in and put road and pylons and everything else. And so you can still see the trace. And it's much like the stuff we talked about where it's like cut in and it's got a flat bed. but a lot of cut-ins. You feel kind of like you're in a tunnel, a lot of it.
Yep, a
But,
canopy.
yeah, and I was going to try to ride some stretches of it, but, you'd need a fat bike and weeks, But it was just cool to be, like, to get on a road and know that it's been there for 200 years, or whatever. It was just overwhelming almost, so...
And then when you're on it, particularly on a bicycle, and you've got a town in 20 miles with a convenience store, and
Yeah.
you can get some donuts and a
Yeah.
coffee or whatever.
Yeah.
Just to think about the people that were bouncing around in a buckboard.
Oh my God. I think about that so much. Like, these people didn't have Garmin navigation, and they didn't even know. I can't imagine there was mile markers and shit. So they're just like, well, we probably got about 4 more hours till we get to the outpost, They're eating on a piece of bread that was cooked 3 days ago.
Right.
And, drinking some water that was pulled out of a puddle, I can't. That's hardy times, man. We've become so soft as a society. The people that went through all of that stuff, it's a different breed.
But it's all they knew.
Yeah.
So it wasn't hard for them. It's just what we do.
True. That's true.
It's just what we do. Kind of goes back to some of the places we saw along the way, and you were like, how do people live like this?
Yeah.
We went through some poverty level areas
Oh my God.
along this route.
Yeah.
And it's like, a lot of these people, they just don't know any different.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying, not being where I'm not sympathetic. I'm not saying it like that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people in those situations, they don't really have anything to compare it to.
Yeah. It was interesting.
Very, 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 very fascinating. And
Oklahoma's beautiful, though. I mean, really pretty.
I'm a fan.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. I think Oklahoma has some of the best outdoors there is to have, because there's a little bit of everything.
And it's
there.
relatively untouched compared to Texas. And there's more public land, too.
There's one. Anything has more public land than Texas, just
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
But yeah, Oklahoma does have still more. And then a lot of the Oklahoma land is Indian Nation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of it's not quite public land, but it's more open than traditional Texas private lands,
Yeah.
sort of thing. So you get a grander sense of the outdoors even through that stuff.
Why does Texas have so much private land? Is it, obviously it's because people bought it. I get that.
That was basically the allure to get people to come to Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Come to Texas and you'll get your land.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of people that their dream was to have acreage or what.
But you have to convert to Christianity?
Catholicism. Pretty much everyone was Christian that was coming already, but
Yeah.
that was part of the deal with Mexico. But even after that, I think Republic of Texas itself, even after it had won its independence, they still needed people to come in, and so that was part of the deal. So that's why there's the, what do they call them, century ranches or whatever in further south in the state. Basically, to get people to come in, they'd say, well, if you come here and you put up a fence within a year,
Mm-hmm.
Everything you can fence is yours. So, but basically, what people did is put up piles of rock as their fence lines, and over time,
Shit, I'm sorry.
that's all right. Over time, that's when barbed wire kicked in, and it's like, well, we can put up barbed wire fences a lot faster,
yeah.
and we can put up rock fences.
Yeah.
And that was, that's when Texas got all fenced in, is basically the advent of barbed wire.
Don't fence me in.
So
Yeah. I really, That's the other thing is the older I get, the more I'm interested in history. And I used to think, well, these history nerds, but I mean, it's fascinating.
The the sense of perspective it gives, but also the sense of there's nothing new under the sun sort of thing. Even whatever trials and tribulations we might be going through right now that might seem unique or out of the ordinary, it's like, that's a people thing. We've been doing it that way. We've been going through those spells over and over and over for
it's cyclical.
Hundreds and thousands of years,
cyclical
sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
what's new in cycling?
What is new in cycling? I honestly don't know. I've been way too caught up in the scouting stuff the past several days, because even after, we knocked out 150 miles of the 250-mile route. I even convinced my wife to go help me finish it off over the weekend, so we knocked it all out.
Was she as upset as you anticipated?
She was pissed at you.
At me?
Yeah, it's all your fault.
Oh, my God. Jan, I hope you're listening. I had nothing to do with it.
Well, you really pissed her off because she went to switch back over to her phone, and why is Brad's phone programmed into my car?
It wasn't.
It was.
I thought I had specifically tried not to do that.
No, remember you tried to do that. You tried to show me that the ride with GPS would come up with Apple and not on Android.
Oh, but I thought I just did that through a tether.
You said, well, it's all good. It's all good. But yeah, so we finished knocking out the whole route. I got that one little gap there, right where you and I turned around, that we need to flesh out.
We turned around in McAllister, right?
That sounds right. No, not McAllister, but it was a similar. Not McAllister, no.
We made it to McAllister, though.
I think we went through it at one point, but it was. I think it was a town that started with an H. It was two towns right next to each other that started with H's, and turned around there. And then that's where Jan and I picked it up from there, and that was our first. I tried to send her down a mud road that she was not comfortable with.
Oh, she was driving.
I had no choice in the matter.
Yeah.
I had no choice in the matter. And but she was very excited by what her new car could do, and it did very well.
That thing's impressive.
It did a great job.
And comfortable. I will say though, 12 hours in that seat was a lot on my rear end.
I agree. I think the bottoms of those seats are a tad thin.
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
But overall, I mean, comfort, amenities, like fit, everything, it was nice.
And we accidentally got a better sense of what it could do in the Ozarks in Arkansas on Saturday night. We took a wrong turn and had to get very creative with the Outback to back up a road we shouldn't have gone down.
Yeah.
And that...
Jan was driving once again?
I had to drive us out, but she drove us in.
Oh, okay.
And she was not comfortable backing up this particular road. And I don't blame her. I wasn't comfortable backing up it, but we didn't have any choice in the matter.
Yeah.
And
Did you guys get to a dead end, or just a spot that you weren't comfortable going through, or it wasn't going to get any better?
It was getting worse by the second, and it obviously wasn't going to get better. And it looked like there was about to be a big hole that there was like we might get down it, but we'll never get back up it, sort of thing. And there was no turnaround.
Yeah.
And basically, it was the property where we had a cabin rented, and the directions to the cabin were wrong. So we basically, I think it was a kayak launch we went down, but it was like down the side of a mountain.
Oh, shit.
And so we started to go down it, and it's like, this ain't going to work.
This was at night?
Just after, I mean, it was getting dark by the second sort of thing, so that adds to the discomfort level.
Yeah, the intensity.
Yeah. Yeah, Jan was like, "Hey, well, let's figure this out. Let's see." It's like, no, we're running out of daylight, sweetie. We got to do something now.
Yeah, yeah.
And but I mean, it backed up like a champ. It did Yeah, I was super duper impressed. We'd had a similar trip when we first got the Jeep, where we took it to an off-road park to try it out, like the first weekend we had it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was out towards, out past Wichita Falls, out towards Copper Break State Park.
Mm-hmm.
Just some crazy terrain that we got in the middle of that we weren't expecting. And we found out the Jeep's limitations very quickly. It's like, this isn't like my old small Jeeps that could just scoot up stuff like that. This is a much bigger Jeep that you got to...
Yeah, it articulates different. Yeah.
And so we learned, in that situation, we learned what the Jeep couldn't do, or we wouldn't be comfortable putting it into. This one was the opposite of that. It's like, good God, we can do about anything with this Subaru as long as we can get the front bumper over it, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And that's really a good gate too. It's like, oh, front bumper's not making it. We're not going there.
Yeah. And you have a camera on the front bumper, so you can can change that view so you can see even if you can't see over the hood.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
It was very cool, and we found some stuff in those. I'd never been in those. I think it's Ozark St. Francis National Forest, east of Fort Smith. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing a spinistry something out there.
I'm trying to think of where that is.
I mean, we were basically 50 miles east of Fort Smith. It's probably probably another 50 to 70 miles northeast of Mena.
Okay. Is that
north of I-40?
Is that kind of where Arkansas High Country route is?
It goes through parts of it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's like the south part of the Arkansas High Country stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Huh. That's pretty country up there, man.
It's absolutely gorgeous, absolutely amazing. I'm looking forward to dialing something in there.
So you say weather's always a factor.
Yes.
Here, but in that area, weather it can flip on a dime up there more so than here. And the temperature swings are real big there too.
Okay.
So it's interesting.
It was absolutely amazingly gorgeous up there this past weekend. It got a little chilly at night, Saturday night, but not bad.
But it's nothing for it to be freezing there at night and then be 75 during the day.
Right. It was an absolutely gorgeous day on Sunday. Well, on Saturday too. So it was, so lots of cool Oklahoma and Arkansas stuff coming for new routes that we're looking forward to, and we'll be fleshing out the Texas Butterfield stuff too. But that's a different ball of wax. But I tell you what, the post I did talking about us doing that route, it was just a little blurb with the map picture on it. Mm-hmm. That's the most viral post of any kind I've ever had on our Facebook page.
Really?
It's a lot of...
I saw Josh Dean's comment.
It's a lot of what I think are non-cyclists that started sharing it around and spreading it around. Probably locals throughout Oklahoma and people that are historically oriented. That are, I mean, it's probably been shared like 150, 200 times. Usually if I get a post shared 5 or 6 times, that's a lot of sharing, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's wild. Did anybody offer up any resources or anything?
Not specifically to that level yet, but lots of people gave recommendations, or, well, here, my family owns this piece of land that it goes right by. Stop in and say hello, that sort of thing. So I think there's potentially some relationships that might get established from this.
Very cool.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Excuse me.
And it really surprised me that the Oklahoma stretch got that much attention.
Yeah.
Whereas when we've talked about our Texas Butterfield stuff for the past couple of years, and it had but evidently there's probably some sort of pride associated with that stretch up there. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's part of their history.
Sure.
Sure.
How about you? Do you have any bicycle news or anything that tickled your fancy over the past week?
I put new bar tape on my Fargo. I'm excited about that.
Which bar tape did you go with?
I forgot what it's called. Cyclation, I don't know.
What's different about it? What's special about it?
Well, I run double on my Fargo just for comfort, but I actually run on the drop section. I run ESI chunkies, the extra longs. They go all the way up to the hoods, and then above the hoods, I run another silicone tape, and then this tape is I want to say rubberized, but it weathers really well. It it doesn't have adhesive on the back, so you can unwrap and wrap as many times as you want, and it doesn't tear itself up. And it also has like raised bumps on it that on the width of the tape is about 2/3 of the width, so it helps you wrap your bars perfect. Not perfect, but it just gives you kind of I don't know, a line gauge or whatever to keep wrapping at the right. And then it just weathers really well. Like the bar tape that I replaced was probably 2 years old, which is a lot for bar tape.
Sure.
And it was just time. It was peeling and everything else. But just it's nice to have fresh bar tape. It's like putting new tires on.
It is.
It just excites you. And then back to Cody Johnson. We drove home that night. We got back at a little after 2 a.m. And my alarm went off at 7, and it was 34 degrees. We got up, had a cup of coffee, and got dressed and rode over to South Lakes Park, which is not far from here, especially with all the shortcuts and stuff I can take through back roads and construction zones and all that. Rode over there and helped Caleb work on that. We were building a berm, and that came together astoundingly quick. It was fun. Denton supplied riprap, like 3-4 inch plus size rock, and they had a skid loader out there and an operator, and so we kind of directed where to put, and then we restacked, and conveniently the skid loader broke after the very last load of riprap was placed, which if it was going to break, that was the best time for it to break.
Sure.
And then they also supplied us with, I don't even know what you call it. It's a powered wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
So it's on tracks, and you stand on it, and it operates like a zero turn lawnmower. You know, you've got 2 levers, and you push both of them forward to go forward. You can literally 360 in place because you can spin one track backwards and one track forward. And then the bucket's powered. I think it's used for putting concrete in remote locations a lot of times, but we used it to move topsoil and clay and gravel and kind of go over the berm and pack it into all the cracks to kind of cement it in place. So I shoveled more than I've shoveled in the last 8 years. And woke up the next morning a little tender.
You felt it, did you?
Yeah. But it was cool to see, we had 5 people there. And in the span of about 6 hours, we had a fully operational berm. Pretty cool. And a pretty sizable berm, probably 3 foot tall.
So are these trails rideable yet? And this is an addition? Yeah. Okay, so
yeah, they're not beat in.
Fill us in on what we're talking about here, where it is, and what it's about at the moment, and where it's going.
So it's right off of Hobson is one of the main entrances to the park. There's concrete path through there, but there's also there's some hiking path that's crushed granite that's like the main loop. And then off of that has been, I think they just started as foot trails. They probably started as game trails, honestly. And they've morphed into really good biking paths. Almost, I mean, we've been incorporating them into rambles for years, and going through that section, just, throwing them into a route. It's nothing that I would drive to ride, but, and we, there was a meeting with the city years ago up at Velo, when we were talking about, the city wants to expand all the trails. And we kind of offered up, well, we know, we've identified a bunch of trails that are questionable, that could use some work, and they could be incorporated into an overall system. And, basically, Denton's looking to add mileage. And we offered up, well, look, we can get you bonus miles for a lot less money, and basically you can stack miles a lot quicker. So it's been kind of cool working with the city and building legal trails, But there was, like I said, there was a lot of trails that were already there. Some of them were real spider webbed out, and basically what we've done is, and I say we, Caleb's done most of the legwork, most of all the mapping and everything, but incorporating some of the existing trails and cutting new trails to kind of give it a more cohesive feel. And then we went through and flagged and kind of avoided all the major trees, and then went through and cut a swath just so you could walk through. And then we had multiple work days for actual clearing and cleaning out all the, there's so much privet and just honey locust and just nastiness in there. It just makes it hard to get through there quickly. But now we're at the point where we're trying to smooth out the trail, trying to put in that, infrastructure like berms and armoring and drainage and all that stuff. And now's prime time to work on trail.
So how much trail is out there right now?
I think we started with maybe 1.5 miles, 2 miles, maybe. And I think the goal is to get about 5 miles out of it. Once again, it's a small little park.
Sure.
But the cool thing is there was kind of a seedy part of the trail where there was, homeless and stuff like that. Not that we want to make the homeless even more homeless, but it makes people less likely to use the trail if there's a perceived danger element.
Sure, of course.
So, much like Boulder back in the day, once they started expanding the trail and taking care of the trail, it kind of chased that element out somewhat. So it's been nice just to see that trail kind of get new life breathed into it, because it kind of happened organically over the years. At least that's my understanding. And now there's kind of a focus on it, and it's turning into, I think it's going to be a fun trail. And there's not going to be major features or anything like that. It's going to be a good neighborhood trail.
Somewhere to pedal your bike.
Yeah. And, it's easy to get to, especially from Denton. So that's why it's thrown into the mix when we ramble a lot, especially on what we call TNBG nights when trails are closed, or like North Shore and stuff like that's closed. We can still ride through there, and we can touch it and see, and it's also a good barometer of what other trails are doing as well.
Sure.
And then there's other stuff in the works too, where Hilltop is joining up with Hickory Creek, how all that's being bypassed, where they're building that bridge that's coming in. All that's going to be city park underneath it, and we're in discussions with the city of cutting trail there as well. So just trying to, anytime you can put 1 mile or 2 of trail in that's close to a bunch of roofs, you're going to encourage people to get outdoors. People are going to walk more, people are going to hike more, but hopefully people are going to bike more, and a concrete path is great. That's going to, get somebody on a road bike or a hybrid bike or whatever. But I really want people to dip their toes into riding dirt, and I feel like, we all started, well, we didn't all, but in my mind, I started riding trails behind my house when I lived in Louisiana on a BMX bike, and that's why I'm so in love with the single speed aspect, because that's all I rode growing up was a BMX, and you either rode it or you got off and walked it. And they were all hunting trails, hiking trails, and stuff like that. But that's really where my fascination with my love of riding dirt came from. And it was just happenstance. It just happened to be out my back door. And I think the more we facilitate that, the better we can grow the cycling community, at least locally, And hopefully that spreads, the butterfly effect, if you will. More dirt equals more riders, equals more passion, equals more industry, and it just everything. So,
I mean, there's no doubt that the key to growing cycling is safe places to ride.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
And we're past the point of people being able to expect, particularly around here anyway, but probably in most parts of the country, if you're in an urban or suburban area, it's not going to get safer to ride a bike on the streets. It's just not going to.
No.
It's not happening. I don't care how many bike lane projects you come up with. It's just there's more cars, there's more trucks, there's more distracted drivers now.
Distracted drivers that drives me insane.
It's not getting better.
It's a plague.
I mean, as much as we can say it shouldn't be that way, the reality is it is.
And what's crazy is you're aware that it's literally illegal to use a handheld device while you're driving. It's a ticketable offense.
Right.
Yet 50% of the people you see on the road are on their phone while they're driving, not with it attached to the dash.
No, they're doing this.
Yeah, they're doing this.
Phone right in their face. Not even looking at.
Drives me insane.
Yes, I agree.
I don't even want to get started on it because I will just go off. But that's I started years ago because I use roads to connect trail, and if it's a busy road and there's distracted riders, I will ride. And I'm not telling everybody to do this. I'm not advocating for it, but I'm just telling you what I do. Like on 377, when I ride between Canyon Falls and Knob Hills, I get on the opposite side on the shoulder so I can see what's coming. And I almost encourage a police officer to harass me for that, because I'm like, I have seen at least 3 accidents on 377 seen in person where people were on their phone and ran into the back of another vehicle. That road is so overrun with people that are distracted drivers. And so my thought process is, if I can see them and I can see they're veering over, I can at least bail. But I can't be looking over my shoulder the whole time I'm riding the road like that and just be in fear. And I'm not going to wear a mirror on my helmet, but I also don't think it would do me as much good as just having my eyes up and seeing what's coming. So that's been a constant effort, because strictly due to distracted drivers. So, and I'm not going to apologize for it.
I'm not asking you to. I don't agree.
That's fair.
I'm not going to argue with it on it. I will take this moment to highly promote the Garmin Varia.
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, and I do get that, but that doesn't tell you. That only tells you that there's a car behind you. That doesn't tell you. I mean, if you're riding on the shoulder of 377, am I not close enough to this thing?
I think you've moved back some. Yeah. You're leaning back.
If you're riding on the shoulder of 377, for instance, and there's constant traffic on there, So that thing's just going to be bzz, bzz, bzz the whole time. And all it's telling you is there's a car behind you. It's not telling you there's a car coming over the shoulder.
I'm not debating.
Yeah.
You gave your version.
That's fair.
I gave my version.
Yeah.
We'll let everyone else decide what's best for them.
Oh, I'm sure I'm going to get hammered. I'm an idiot for riding in the opposite direction. But ultimately, I think it's safer. I mean, having a visual cue versus relying on some tech to give you a heads up.
I understand. I completely understand your point of view.
And I love the Varia for like riding remote roads where a car's going to sneak up on you. I like that, you know. I like the Vario with the built-in camera even better. That way you have footage in case something happens. But that's just an insurance policy, you know?
Yeah, I don't know how much good that does.
Yeah.
I'll let you know someday, maybe. Because I have footage of mine, but
Yeah.
I don't know how much good it's done us yet.
Yeah.
We'll find out someday.
Can't believe you're still fighting that.
It's just the process.
Yeah.
No, I get where I totally get where you're coming from, and I get your position, and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna tell anyone else what they need to
Same. I'm
give
not.
give them their own peace of mind. That's
Yeah.
that's not for me to say. I think we're both on the same page of we try to minimize our time on those types of roads,
Yeah.
no matter what.
Yeah.
If I could find a way to completely get them out of my cycling existence, I would. Well, I mean, back to the Butterfield route that we scouted. Our turnaround point that Jan and I picked up from where you and I left off, I still have to do one more reroute, basically right through that section, because where we came out onto the, we were supposed to do, the route itself was supposed to do a couple miles on a highway-ish, a higher speed road, and then pick up like 1.5 miles, 2 miles down the road. And the first 3/4 of a mile had a nice wide shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
But then the next mile, that shoulder was gone,
Yeah.
and it was winding through the foothills,
Yeah.
and there was semi-traffic coming up and down. It's like, I'm not sending people down that.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's only 3/4 of a mile. That's not a good situation. But we weren't in a position there to, well, let's double back and find a reroute. No, it's like, no, we're in the car, so we'll see what the rest of the route looks like, and when I get home, I'll look at the maps and see if I can find her. So that's what I've got a 10-mile stretch, literally almost right in the middle of the route. It's like, I got to redo this, and then we're golden.
You know how vocal I am and how cognizant I am when we're scouting and we turn out onto a road. I'm like, ooh, this sucks. And I know you're thinking it, but I'm always like, I would not want to ride on this road, you know? And I just, it freaks me out because we've known plenty of people that have been hit.
Sure.
So I like to minimize my exposure to all that. And that's part of the reason that, you know, we ramble the way we do. You know, I try, we do try to hit every surface when we call something a ramble. You know, there's footpath, there's bike path, there's road, there's gravel, there's trail, there's everything. But I do try to minimize how much we touch road. You know, ideally we just cross roads.
As much as possible.
Yeah,
I agree.
But it's not always, I mean.
Sometimes you got to connect the dots one way or another, but then that's where, you know, that's where me as a route builder, I will forego a glorious section of dirt that might be an extra 2 miles of pavement on a high-speed road. We're not going there. We're going to take this one, but I may still have 3/4 of a mile of high-speed pavement to get there, but that's better than 3 miles of it.
It's a compromise at best.
Is.
Yeah, I get it. And like we've discussed in previous podcasts, that's what makes it so difficult is because so much of our gravel has gone away, and as soon as you pave something, it automatically picks up more traffic almost.
It's kind of a chicken and the egg thing.
Yeah, that's fair.
Basically, they don't pave it till there's more traffic out there to begin with. But yes, once it's paved, then even more comes in.
Yeah. So there's constantly reworks. I get it, but I just
Oh, Jan and I did find an interesting little corner. Do you remember when we were headed out towards the end when you were like, well, is this going anywhere? Do we want to take this turn? I said, look at these squigglies and but you know, we took a left and you said, where does that straight one go? Well, Jan and I took that straight one.
okay.
That was quite interesting. And just the weirdest, I'm not sure what was going on. I don't know if they were hunting camps, if they were, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word when somebody,
Transient,
no, when they move into a house and
gypsies,
no,
squatters.
squatter.
Yeah,
I think they might have been people squatting on some of that in between land. That is it Indian Nation land or is it Forest Service land, or you know how sometimes there's those
yeah. It's gray area
gray area
as far as who has jurisdiction.
There was this stretch of it looked like people just squatting on the land. They were like living in campers and bigger tent setups, but then they had chicken coops fenced in and stuff like, and then they had fences all around, you know, their property or where they were staying. It was real. Never seen anything like that before.
Not where you would want to break down.
You know, I think there's. I would be more okay with breaking down there than some parts northwest of Fort Worth, quite frankly. But
Yeah, well, that's that's fair. That's fair. That was a similar situation. Remember where we stopped for you to take that phone call, and I got out to water a tree, and then I wandered down the road.
Yeah.
I don't know. I meant to point it out to you, but we immediately started talking about other stuff. I walked down to look at that house that was there that was just abandoned, and it was still a complete house, although all the windows had been broken out and stuff. There was definitely signs that someone was squatting there, and ironically, I heard chickens as well, roosters crowing and stuff. So it's funny that you say that. Like there was chicken coops. I did not see a coop, but I couldn't see behind the house and everything, and I didn't want to make myself present really. So I was just kind of peeping a little bit, but it definitely looked like a squatter situation as well.
I think that might be fairly common in Oklahoma, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't know for sure.
Yeah, there's definitely some seedy areas we came across, and like I said, Oklahoma's beautiful, despite what Mother Nature tries to do to it with tornadoes, and then what some of the people choose to do. Just hoarding is not even the right term. I think hoarding is when you collect stuff, right? What's it called when you never get rid of anything?
I think that's hoarding too.
Is it?
Yeah.
Because there's definitely properties we came across, and you're like, do these people even take their trash to the street?
Yeah.
You know, it was, whoo. I mean, don't get me wrong. My house isn't pristine and perfect, but man, we definitely get rid of a lot of stuff. It is, whoo.
My wife is very sympathetic to your discomfort around those properties.
Yeah.
She's exactly the same way. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm a fan, but yeah, both of y'all have the same primitive reaction.
Yeah,
when you're
visceral.
exposed.
It's what is? I can't help but think, like, if their yard looks like this, how full is the ashtray? I mean, oh.
You know, but
I'm excited about that route, though. I think, you know, it. I don't know how to say this the right way, but I hope that the people that take on that route and choose to do all of it or a portion of it embrace the history a little bit, and don't just fly by the historical markers.
yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be collecting FKTs along the Butterfield route sort of thing. It's like if somebody wants to go out and set an FKT, you go do your own thing. It's not going to be posted on a Spinistry page about it, sort of thing.
I think there's something beautiful about the history of that route, and just like I said, like, you know, it was super. It's gonna sound silly, but almost romantic when we stopped on the side of the road to look at that old schoolhouse, that single room schoolhouse, which I'm still unclear whether it was that foundation or the actual building that we went into.
I think the foundation was probably the schoolhouse, and
I
the
feel like it
building
was, too.
was maybe something that was put up later to reconstruct it or something
Yeah.
like that. I thought the root cellar was the fascinating
Yes,
part.
it was. Yeah, I actually went down in there a little bit. It was a little spooky, but it was just, it was drizzling rain, and there was vehicles droning by, and you could just see all the strewn rock and stuff. And it was just, to me, there was just something so cool about it.
I mean, I could feel the history coming up through my toes. I really could.
Yeah, it's super cool. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you're going to go do some of that route, I encourage you to keep your head up, look for the history, because there's a lot of history just peppered through there. It was cool. I wasn't prepared to be as enamored with it as I was, and I was even to the point where I was discussing it with Paula later, and I was telling her, like, I don't even know all this stuff. We had a pretty good discussion about it. So
Very cool.
it's cool. So kind of awoken another facet of my interest as far as history goes.
Well, that's mission accomplished then.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to hear that. Is this a good time to just go ahead and roll on out, you
I'm
think?
good with it.
Well, thank you,
Ride
sir.
your bike, people.
Go ride your bike because it's beautiful out there.
Man.